So I was really excited for No More Room in Hell 2. I mean, I was looking for a new game, and I saw some of the trailers from various game demo conferences, and I thought it looked cool, if they could pull it off. I'd never played the original No More Room in Hell, and all I saw was a first-person survival zombie game, and that seemed fun and interesting. I was in. From that point, I started following the game closely, searching for any news, new footage, or developer interviews, anything to give me a glimpse into how this game was shaping up. And from the very beginning, I had my doubts. Red flags started popping up when there was no gameplay footage. Only tiny snippets or carefully curated pieces that looked more like pre-rendered scenes made to look like gameplay rather than real, actual gameplay. This is one of the things I can't stand about modern gaming. Developers putting out pre-rendered footage disguised as in-game gameplay. It's deceptive and it's a straight-up lie to gamers. And I could tell that No More Room in Hell 2 was leaning into this tactic when they showed that church footage. But I wanted to believe. I wanted this game to be great, so I put on my rose-colored glasses and held out hope that we'd get real gameplay closer to launch. Then came Gamescom in September, just a month before the early access release. What did we get? Another trailer. No actual gameplay. Again, red flags went up. When developers are confident in their product, they showcase real, unedited gameplay. Or even better, provide a demo. What we got was just a trailer. The kind you see when developers know they're sitting on a subpar product. But again, I held on to my hope. I wanted this game to succeed, so I gave them a lot of leeway. Throughout late September and October, they trickled out these tiny clips, 10-second or 2-minute snippets of gameplay. And sure, it looked like gameplay, but looking back, it's obvious it was extremely curated. No bugs, no issues, just a perfect 30 to 45 second clip. In reality, the game can hardly go a minute without running into issues. October rolled around, and they even showed a few developer playtests. It looked promising, so my excitement returned. They also released a roadmap, something that looked like it was meant to reassure people. But when I looked at the roadmap, it was obvious that basic features were still in development. I mean, the kind of stuff that should have been ready to go, or at least close to ready to go, was somehow still actively being worked on. Even worse, many of the more crucial elements were still at the conceptual stage. It looked like a patchwork of ideas, not a plan for a well thought out game. It didn't look like a well thought out plan, it looked like a desperate attempt to patch up things that should have been ready months ago. But despite everything, I was still holding on to the hope they could deliver something good. And then, a week or so before launch, a bunch of YouTubers started putting out videos. They had gotten early access to the game pre-launch and had glowing reviews. Quite a few of these channels have over 100,000 subscribers, and almost every single one of them, outside of literally 1 or 2 people, lied. Almost every single one of them said the game was fun, they had a great time, that the atmosphere was fantastic. Just non-stop praise. The only mention of problems was a brief line or two about how some quirks or bugs or a little bit of jank that they played off as minor issues, and then they went right back to raving about how much fun it was. I even got a few friends interested in the game based on these YouTuber reviews. I watched their gameplay, and it looked decent, though now it's obvious that the footage they showed was heavily curated to make the game look good. Sure, there were some issues with clipping, graphical bugs, and animations, but it's early access, right? I could live with that. The gameplay loop they showed looked fun, and I trusted what these content creators were saying. But that trust was misplaced because they lied. They lied about everything in the game. It was completely disingenuous, and honestly, I can't figure out why they did it. I understand getting a free copy of the game, but to sell out your integrity and lie to your audience over a game, it makes no sense. Torn Banner Studios isn't some giant publisher like EA or Ubisoft who might pay for positive reviews. These creators chose to shill for a game that was clearly broken, and in doing so, they threw their audience under the bus. They threw their own integrity, honesty, and respect for their viewers right out the window. All for what? Early access? Future access? They sold out their audience, the very people who trusted them, just to stay in good standing with the developers. What's even worse is that these content creators weren't honest about the state of the game. They acted as if the issues were minor, mentioning bugs only in passing, and used phrases like a few quirks to brush off what were actually game-breaking problems. In hindsight, it was all so obviously scripted to keep the developers happy. And it shows a complete disregard for the viewers who rely on them for genuine opinions. They didn't care about their audience, they cared about maintaining that access pipeline. I'm a smaller channel. I'm trying to grow, but I don't care if I had 5 subscribers or 5 million subscribers, I would never lie to my audience like that. My integrity is worth more to me than access or early copies of a game. And that's what this whole thing is about, access. If If you're willing to lie and say that a broken game is great, maybe you'll get the next game early too. Maybe other developers will see you as a safe choice to send pre-release copies to, knowing you won't be honest about their game's faults. It's disgusting, and I have zero respect for anyone who participated in it. I think it's important to call this out, because if you're watching YouTubers with hundreds of thousands of subscribers, you trust them. You believe they're telling you the truth, especially about a game that costs $30 of your hard-earned money. These YouTubers were supposed to be the bridge between players and developers, offering honest insights, but they completely failed to do that. Instead, they acted like PR agents for Torn Banner Studios, and in doing so, they showed that they cared more about maintaining developer relationships than about providing truthful content to their viewers. These people lied, and they don't deserve your support. They're like an employee lying to their boss, and in this case, their boss is you. Their viewers are the ones who put food on their table, and they completely disregarded the trust and loyalty of every single one of us. If you can't tell, I could go on and on about the lack of integrity here, but let's talk about the game itself, because that's what really matters. When No More Room in Hell 2 finally launched, I logged in early, excited to play it and figure out the controls. I use a controller, and I knew there was a chance there wouldn't be official support, but I use software called Rewast that allows you to map controller buttons to mouse and keyboard keys, and I was prepared to do that if needed. But when I logged in, the UI was showing controller button prompts, so I thought, great, it actually has controller support. I set up my graphics settings and loaded into my first mission, and almost immediately realized that this game did not have proper controller support. Buttons were mapped incorrectly and things quickly fell apart. The bindings would revert to default mid-game, or the game would just stop recognizing my controller entirely. Watch my stream, you'll see it. It was broken. And this experience, the misleading sense that the controller would work, only to have it malfunction, typifies the experience of No More Room in Hell 2. Everything was broken. There were animation bugs where teammates glided across the map in a T-pose without any walking animations. Zombies would glitch out of windows or try to climb to spots I'd left ages ago. And then there were the birds, those awful birds that look like something out of a bad Xbox 360 game. The hit detection was horrendous. Sometimes zombies would walk right through me, and other times I would fire directly at them, center mass, and nothing would register. The lighting was constantly glitching in and out. Graphical slowdowns happened in empty areas, and the destruction physics were laughably inaccurate. Shooting a zombie in the head would somehow explode its limbs, and don't even get me started on the performance issues. My rig is top of the line, a 4090 GPU, i9-13900KS, 128 gigabytes of DDR5 RAM, and I still experienced FPS drops, random slowdowns, and stuttering. This game was a mess from top to bottom, and what's maybe the worst part, enemies would disappear mid-run and then teleport back into place, or just vanish entirely. This wasn't an occasional glitch, it was happening every 30 seconds, making it impossible to enjoy the game. And they had the audacity to charge $30 for this mess. It's beyond comprehension how anyone could feel good about releasing this, let alone charging people money for it. I'm not just here to tear down the game. I wanted this game to succeed. In the weeks leading up to launch, I took to social media, replying to almost every single post Torn Banner Studios or the official No More Room in Hell account made promoting the game, asking about controller support. And what did I get? Nothing. No response. Not a word. And that's not just me. There were no responses to anyone. If you have the guts to charge $30 for a game, you should also have the resources to hire a social media manager to respond to player inquiries. It's just basic business sense and common decency to engage with the people who are interested in your game. Ignoring the community entirely shows a complete lack of care, and that's exactly what I saw from Torn Banner Studios. A few months before the launch of the game, I joined the No More Room in Hell Discord, although I wasn't very active on it because they didn't really post anything, and the only channel that was active was the No More Room in Hell 2 discussion channel. And only in the couple weeks leading up to launch was there any announcements or any engagement from any developers in the Discord. After I played the game and realized just how broken it was, I decided to message the community admin directly. I wanted to give them the benefit of the doubt and provide detailed feedback, in hopes that they would take the issue seriously. The community admin actually responded, and I have to give credit where it's due. She was courteous and took the time to ask for clarification about the problems I was experiencing with the controller support. I appreciated her willingness to engage, especially considering the absolute chaos in the Discord, with players justifiably angry about the state of the game. Go check it out right now. It's a madhouse, with countless people calling out the developers for the broken experience. Despite that, she listened to my feedback, and while I do have hope that she passed it on to the development team, game, I have no faith that these issues are going to be fixed anytime soon. Not when they had 5 years to develop this game and this is what they released. Not when they acted as if everything was fine, even ignoring questions on social media. When I replied to almost every single post they made leading up to release asking about controller support. And here's the truth. They tried to push the blame onto server issues. But in 2024, gamers know better. We all understand servers and we know what kind of problems servers cause. And it's not this. The bugs, the performance issues, the game-breaking glitches, those go far beyond server problems. The game is fundamentally broken. And by the way, there are countless other problems in the game that I'm just not mentioning because there's so many that it would probably take an hour just for me to go over everything. And that's just from a 2-hour playthrough of the game. And besides the in-game issues, there are also countless other problems. The second map is still in the conceptual phase. They've supposedly been working on this game for 5 years, and yet they haven't even started designing the second map? It's genuinely baffling. Like, what exactly has Torn Banner Studios been doing with their time and resources over the past 5 years? The roadmap, the unfinished features, and the basic elements that are still concepts? It all points to a severe mismanagement of time and priorities. How do you spend 5 years on a game and not even have a second map designed? It raises serious questions about what kind of development process they're running, and whether they even had a coherent plan to begin with. It blows my mind. And on top of that, they are still trying to act as if everything is under control by showing carefully curated snippets, attempting to distract from the glaring issues at hand. It's a blatant attempt to make people believe that everything is fine, when the truth is that this game is far from ready. They keep pushing the narrative that things are manageable, but anyone who has played the game can see that that's just not true. No amount of polished trailers or short gameplay clips can hide the fact that No More Room in Hell 2 is a broken, unfinished product that never should have been released in its current state. And you don't have to take my word for it. Just take a look at the overwhelmingly negative reviews on Steam. It's clear that the community as a whole feels betrayed by what Torn Banner Studios has done here. Players are frustrated, and rightfully so. The reviews are full of complaints about everything from the broken gameplay mechanics to the constant bugs and glitches that make the game unplayable. Many players mention feeling deceived by the misleading promotional content and the positive coverage from early access YouTubers. The sheer volume of negative feedback speaks to how deeply disappointed people are. No More Room in Hell 2 could have been something special, but right now it's a glaring example of how not to launch a game. The backlash is real, and unless the developers make significant changes and make them fast, this game is likely destined to fade into obscurity. After my disastrous stream, where I tried to play the game and ended up ending the stream due to the countless bugs, glitches, and constant issues with controller support, I decided to take things a step further. I filled out a feedback form on their website. In the game itself, there was an option to report feedback, and I used it, because I don't see the point in just complaining without providing something constructive. I put together a detailed and descriptive list of all the issues I experienced with the game, particularly regarding controller support, and submitted it, not really expecting to hear anything back. To my surprise, I received an email the next day. They acknowledged the problems I had reported and mentioned that they were aware of many of the issues. They asked me what controller I was using and said they would check out the gliding issue with enemies and teammates, the climbing problems, and the ADS glitches. They mentioned they were working on hit registration inconsistencies, lighting issues, graphical slowdowns, and the disappearing and teleporting enemies. They even pointed out that they had released a hotfix aimed at addressing some of the performance issues and recommended I make sure I was running the latest version. I downloaded the hotfix and played the game again, and I can honestly say I noticed zero difference. There was no improvement in the experience. Nothing had changed. If they hadn't told me they put out a hotfix, I would not have believed it. Now sure, I understand that proper controller support might take more time, but nothing else seemed fixed either. Maybe they addressed some back-end issues, but the gameplay still felt fundamentally broken. And the excuse of server issues simply doesn't explain away all the issues myself and others continue to experience. They later released a tweet and a Discord post stating that they would be putting out another hotfix next week aimed at improving more performance issues and server functionality. They also mentioned a goal of providing at least one hotfix per week. But what really stood out as the most disturbing part of the post was where they admitted that they had to pivot from creating new content and new features to focusing on quality of life improvements. They explicitly stated that the items on their roadmap, while not canceled, would now take longer to arrive. They even called out specific elements like the firefighter zombie type and the opportunity to respawn in game as things that would have to be delayed. This left me completely baffled. How do you release a game without realizing just how fundamentally broken it is? Then to say that you have to shift focus to fixing the existing game rather than working on new content? content, it feels beyond disingenuous. I can't understand how they weren't aware of the state of this game before release. At this point, I wouldn't be surprised if they canceled the game entirely and refunded everyone, though I doubt they're going to do that because that means giving up all the money they've made so far, and as you know from my past videos, one thing you can count on from game developers is almost all of them are greedy. To now focus solely on improving what little content is in the game, the one map, the zombies, the melee and gun combat, and a couple of mini games, it's absurd. This isn't some grand, expansive Skyrim-like experience. It's a very limited offering. And the fact that they're delaying something simple like adding a firefighter zombie, which is just a zombie with a firefighter reskin, shows their incompetence. I did provide another even more detailed email response focusing specifically on the controller issues, since that seemed to be the one area they weren't already aware of. I described everything in greater depth now that I had had more time with the game and had figured out what could and couldn't be done with a controller. I'll give them credit for responding, but this is not the first time I've reached out to a game developer, and it's not the first time I've gotten a response acknowledging that my issues were genuine, and I've yet to have one game developer follow through on actually fixing the issues they acknowledged. Given the overall state of the game, their recent announcement, and my own history with these types of situations, I don't have much faith that anything will change, and I think logically that's the correct assumption to make. Thanks for sticking around for this deep dive into the disaster that is No More Room in Hell 2. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button, share it with your friends, and if you want to hear from a YouTuber who will be honest with you and not mislead or lie to you for money or access, make sure to subscribe. Your support really helps, and by subscribing, you're supporting us as we keep covering more games, doing live streams, producing better content, and covering all aspects of gaming. And remember, it's only GG when you win.